As I speak, Lindsey Graham is in South Carolina right now endorsing Jeb Bush for president. Sorry, but come on, folks. You got a guy who polled something in the neighborhood of what, 0.8 tenths of 1% in Graham, and now he's telling his fellow South Carolinians, I think you need to get behind Jeb Bush because he's so bold and exciting and allied with Saudi Arabia along with the rest of his family, and he'll do whatever the big boys in the Republican Party want him to do, unlike these other unruly folks over here that we had in town last night for the debate. 7 minutes after 8 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Friday, we've got a little snow on the ground. It's a little slippery in some spots. I will tell you that some of the ladies here at work yesterday were talking about the weather advisory overnight and the snow that was coming down. And I was listening to them, and I thought, they're chattering away like it's going to be a blizzard that's rolling through here. And I got up this morning, and I can always tell that when it snowed a little because you get a reflection from a lot of the light. So it appears brighter outside. So I looked out, took a gander, and realized it hadn't snowed very much. When I drove into work, I think we had perhaps an inch on the ground, and it was very, very, when you step on it, you know it's that high concentrate with moisture. It's so if we get up above 30 degrees today, we're at 30 right now, a couple more degrees, a lot of this will melt off, and then we're going to see a mix over the next several days. I want to thank you for joining me. I'm sure a lot of you did sit down because you had nothing better to do last night than watch the Fox Business Network and catch the debate while it was on television. I'm sure that was the one thing you knew for months you'd been looking forward to this, for weeks you'd been looking forward to it. You had it marked on the calendar, and you decided to watch last night. I did not. I went to bed early. I got up this morning and watched the repeat. How's that? That's what I've been doing lately. I get up early enough in the morning where I can sift through the whole thing and then make some judgments, and then I can go look at all of the reviews. Or I can look at the reviews and watch at the same time and see what various people think. And Lindsey Graham, of course, thought that Jeb Bush was the winner last night. Lindsey Graham, apparently the only person in America who came to that conclusion. Judging by what I'm reading today, Jeb Bush, if he held his own, will still poll at about 5% nationwide. And that is the 5%, of course, who are still loyal to his family's brand. The other 95% of Republicans long ago left the Bush family behind. Like a lot of Democrats are leaving Hillary Clinton behind right now. We'll talk about that a little later in the program. But first, I wanted to talk about last night's debate. I'm sure some of you saw it. I'm going to share with you a couple of clips, but I would like to know your opinions on winners and losers. But first, again, I'm going to share a couple of clips instead of getting derailed right off the top. And the first one is, there were really two highlights, I think two top moments. And the candidates, there's a lot of talk today that some people say four candidates did very well. And I'll give you the names: Trump, Cruz, Rubio, and Christie. Other people leave Christie out of the group and say it was just really Trump, Cruz, and Rubio. Christie, I don't know how the man's going to survive. A lot of Republicans listen to Rush Limbaugh, and they listen intently to Rush Limbaugh every day, and they've been doing it for over 25 years. And at the tail end of Limbaugh's program yesterday, if you heard it, he sank Chris Christie's boat, pointing out Christie had given the president a big hug on the beach in New Jersey and caused Mitt Romney to go down to defeat. That's about as close as Rush ever gets to condemning a candidate. Usually he stays out of these primary races, waits until there's a victor, and then rallies behind whoever that person happens to be. This is Ted Cruz speaking on stage last night, and this whole birther issue. Story Today says there's a poll out that shows 25% of all Republicans believe that Cruz's Canadian birth disqualifies him for the presidency, despite what Andrew McCarthy, the constitutional lawyer and former federal prosecutor, says. Under the laws of the United States from 1952 to 1986, Cruz is clearly eligible. Cruz dove right into this when he was asked a question last night by Neil Cavuto from the Fox Business Network if that birth in Canada is a disqualification.
Well, Neil, I'm glad we are focusing on the important topics of the evening. You know, back in September, my friend Donald said that he had his lawyers look at this from every which way. And there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now, since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But what the poll numbers have. And I recognize that Donald is dismayed that his poll numbers are falling in Iowa. But the facts and the law here are really quite clear. Under longstanding U.S. law, the child of a U.S. citizen born abroad is a natural-born citizen. If a soldier has a child abroad, that child is a natural-born citizen. That's why John McCain, even though he was born in Panama, was eligible to run for president. If an American missionary has a child abroad, that child is a natural-born citizen. That's why George Romney, Mitt's dad, was eligible to run for president, even though he was born in Mexico. At the end of the day, the legal issue is quite straightforward, but I would note that the birther theories that Donald has been relying on, some of the more extreme ones insist that you must not only be born on U.S. soil, but have two parents born on U.S. soil. Under that theory, not only would I be disqualified, Marco Rubio would be disqualified, Bobby Jindal would be disqualified, and interestingly enough, Donald J. Trump would be disqualified. Because Donald's mother was born in Scotland.
So there you go. Ted Cruz giving a reply to Trump. If you're one of those people who thinks that Trump is somehow being dishonest about all of this, the one thing I will give Trump credit for is he doesn't seem to have a lying bone in his body. You know, when he was questioned about giving money in his past to various candidates who were both Democrats and Republicans, he said, that's the price of doing business. He said, and if you don't understand that, you don't know how business works in this country, where he could have tried to dodge that. And Trump actually said, yeah, of course I brought this up because Ted was doing well in the polls. So he's a breath of fresh air, at least in that sense, and he's never afraid of giving you what his mindset is and really pulling back the curtain and showing you exactly how business and politics work. A lot of people still think that Donald Trump is the big clown in this whole race. You're hearing that, of course, from most of the liberals in America, and you're hearing it from the Republican establishment as well. But if there was one point during the debate last night where Donald Trump may have given an answer that cleared up a lot of this notion. First of all, nobody makes $10 billion in life by being stupid, as a caller told us last week. But listen to Donald Trump respond, because the other day Ted Cruz made a quip that Donald Trump was very New York, as if that somehow is a disparaging remark, and yes, sometimes it is. Listen to Trump defending his hometown last night.
Thousands of people killed, and the cleanup started the next day, and it was the most horrific cleanup probably in the history of doing this and in construction. I was down there, and I've never seen anything like it. And the people in New York fought and fought and fought, and we saw more death and even the smell of death. Nobody understood it, and it was with us for months, the smell, the air. And we rebuilt downtown Manhattan, and everybody in the world watched, and everybody in the world loved New York and loved New Yorkers. And I have to tell you, that was a very insulting statement that Ted made.
And this morning, one of the New York newspapers has a big headline, and it mentions that, well, Cruz may not like New York. It points out his Canadian birth. And so this thing has gotten a little bit out of hand among the two men who are really the leaders in this particular contest at this point. It's 8:15. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. We have suddenly dropped from 30 degrees. We're down to 27. Don't know how that happened in just a short few minutes. Usually I bring a lot of hot air to this event. If you'd like to offer a thought or two on what you heard last night, if you did watch it, or if you didn't watch it, maybe even offer a thought or two on it, please feel free to give me a telephone call. That telephone number is 736-0300, 736-0300. Carly Fiorina was named the winner of the undercard debate, but does anybody pay any attention to the undercard debate any longer? We had a candidate who didn't even show up for it last night, and I would think that within a month you will not have a whole gaggle of people on these stages. You'll have 4 or 5, and within 2 months you'll have 2. And we'll likely have 2 going forward through the spring, and then by the time we get into beginning of May, we'll know who the nominee is going to be, the nominee of the Republican Party. The Democrats will know that their prospective nominee is likely going to prison, or potentially going to prison at that point. It's 8:16. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. Remember, our website, you can hear us anywhere all over the world if you go to that Listen Live function. had a telephone call, in fact, from an old friend yesterday listening to us from Phoenix, New York, which is near Lake Ontario, where they are likely going to be getting slammed with snow over the next few days. And when it falls there, when they talk about 8, they're not talking about 8 inches, they're talking about 8 feet. They'll get sometimes several feet a day as the snow roars off the lake. We have a caller with us. You're up next. You're on News Radio 1310 KLIX.
Hi, yes. I just get really tired of Fox News always promoting Trump, and it's so obvious the way they do it. And so I watched it for a little while, and I got so disgusted with the way they were running the debate that I just shut it off, and I'll hang up.
Well, interesting comment. I'm glad you brought that up because I have a clip. The writer Stephen F. Hayes, a conservative writer, was on Sean Hannity's program last night on the main Fox News network, and they got into a little bit of a scrap about this following the debate. Take a listen.
Well, I think Trump is the least electable, but I'm willing to be, look, I didn't think Donald Trump was going to be a competitor for the Republican nomination. He's clearly a competitor for the Republican nomination, so maybe what I thought I understood before I'm not understanding, maybe he would be more electable than I would think. I don't think he'd have the kind of enduring cross-party appeal that Peter and Monica do, and I think 11 months, you put Donald Trump opposite Hillary Clinton for 11 months,
no, you know
the things
what,
that will
Steve,
end for Trump,
let me
just finish the thought.
Steve,
the things that will end for Trump.
You have been, for 6 months, you and some others have been pretty harsh against Donald Trump, and every prediction that he's going to fall on his face is proven false. He has sustained a lead in this nominating process for 6 months. That is a solid performance.
Sean, I just said that. I just said that.
Yeah, but I know.
I don't know what point. I'm telling you, I underestimated him. That's the whole point. That's the point I'm making here. You don't ever take the time. You don't ever take the time to say that Peter's been a Trump booster, that Monica likes Trump, that you've been a Trump booster. But you always point out every time I'm on.
No.
Wait.
I haven't. The fact is, I haven't been a Trump booster. Look, I've criticized him on a bunch of things, and so I'm trying to be really objective about it. And I think he's got a good shot at winning.
So what Hayes is saying is the Fox network is in the tank for Donald Trump. Actually, CNN is in the tank for Donald Trump. CNN also gives an inordinate amount of time to Trump statements, and Trump, who said he'll spend $1 billion in an attempt to win the election, really hasn't had to spend much more than a few $100,000 because I think, in fact, it was Rand Paul who came right out and said some months ago, he said, he doesn't need to buy advertising. You give it to him for free. On the other hand, I'll make the argument Trump is definitely, when he's on television, people are paying attention. And Rand Paul has been mightily a disappointment. And Rand Paul reminds me too often of my 5th grade school teacher. And, if you're going to be running for president in the television age, in the mass media age, bring your personality along with you. I've got more on this subject on the way and more of your telephone calls as well. Bill Colley on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. There was a group of people who decided to have a counter demonstration last night at the state capitol. Over the course of the last few days, we've heard from Rick Martin from Buell on the program, and he has been the fellow behind the referendum to end the refugee resettlement program here in the Magic Valley. And his group has some very large tentacles all over the state of Idaho, so they were putting on presentations for legislators and other members of the public the last few days in Boise. And a counter-demonstration decided to break out during the course of this yesterday, and the group comprised, mainly of Unitarian Universalist college professors and Episcopalians, and I'm redundant, I know, showed up in support of Syrian refugees. And of course, the feeling is Episcopalians have been kicked out of the Anglican Communion, the worldwide communion, because they now do perform same-sex marriages. So they'd like to then now go make new allies with Muslims coming here and say, I am your friend. Say, I think Muhammad and Abdul here should get married. See how that'll go over. So they had this big event, this big dog and pony show that took place, and then the dog and pony show response as well. And it didn't get out of hand. I mean, everyone is doing their usual hey, hey, ho, ho. They haven't come up with any new chants on the left since 1966. So they were doing all of this during the course of the program. I almost come to believe that a lot of these people who say that, we aren't those kind of people, and we need to be welcoming. And even if they kill a few 100,000 of us, then they'll know that we're decent people because we don't stand up for ourselves. And if they'd like my virgin daughter, then they can have her too. Then they only have to collect 71 more. That's what you get out of lefties on all of this. The problem is you've got a lot of people, even in the Republican Party, who are also on board with this notion that all you have to do is say to these people, say, we're nice people, so you'll be nice too, right? Well, all right, come on in. Put down your sword for a moment, come on in. I said, put down the sword for a moment. Oh, no, wait a minute. Jeb Bush, among that crowd, speaking during the debate last night, I think that he said something along the lines of, I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. And he was challenging Donald Trump's stand. Trump says we need to be better. We need to be more vigilant when it comes to refugee resettlement.
Donald, can I hope you reconsider this, because this policy is a policy that makes it impossible to build the coalition necessary to take out ISIS.
Oh, wow. You know, whenever Jeb speaks, I just, it's a little bit like Chris Matthews and Barack Obama. I get that thrill up the leg, you know? It's just spellbinding to hear Jeb. And people thought that W was the stupid one. Bush then asked Trump if he would recant on his call to, for the time being, suspend refugee resettlement.
No. No. Look, we have to stop with political correctness. We have to get down to creating a country that's not going to have the kind of problems that we've had.
See, the man has doubled his lead in national polls, and his opponents keep saying, you need to say you're sorry. You need to stop talking about issues that regular Americans care about. Because we here at Wall Street and all of our big Wall Street money donors, they don't like it when you do that. Bush going out and saying, Donald, if you talk like that, then we can't put a coalition together to fight ISIS. What coalition? ISIS has been ravaging the Middle East now for 3-4 years. What other Islamic nations in the region have really taken a stand to date? No one, other than the King of Jordan flew a couple of sorties after one of his pilots was burned to death. Saudis aren't doing it. The Iranians aren't doing it. They're too busy harassing our Navy. The Syrians themselves are choking to death on ISIS. The Iraqis are putting up a modicum of a fight with what little army they still have left that we trained. Turkey isn't interested in doing it. Before Donald Trump came along and brought this up, a month and a half ago? Again, ISIS has been in business for 3-4 years. No coalition was put together. Is Jeb Bush smoking crack? I know he's from Florida. It's possible. Anything down there goes. 828, Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. More of your thoughts, perhaps, on this debate last night and the direction things are going, because it does look as if a few people have said it's down now to just 3 candidates, 2 of whom are absolutely despised by the Republican establishment. Isn't that a great thing? We'll talk about that coming up a bit more this morning, too, as well. And as I say, more of your telephone calls on the other side of the break at 736-0300. Also, would like to remind you, if you're a newcomer to this program, we do a segment on Wednesday mornings between 8:30 and 9 o'clock called Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. And one of the medical professionals from Tripp Family Medicine will join us in studio. It'll likely be a physician assistant, Russell Singleton, in fact, coming up this next Wednesday. And we talk about a specific issue that is important to your health. And sometimes if you have other issues too, you can also call into the program and you can get someone to answer the question that you have. The doctor did that the other day, did a wonderful job with it while he was in the studio with us. We do it every Wednesday morning between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Tripp Family Medicine is located on Fillmore Street right here in Twin Falls, directly across the street from the main post office. And remember, life's too short not to feel good.